Mobile hunters, are you looking to make the move to saddle hunting this year? Or maybe you just want to add a few new pieces of gear or upgrade your current saddle gear. If that's the case, then head over to tetherednation.com where they've got all mobile hunters covered. Whether you're new to saddle hunting or an old timer, Tethered is your one-stop saddle shop. From saddles to ropes, sticks, ascenders, whatever it is you need, they have you covered. I've personally been using their gear for the past 3 seasons now. My base setup consists of the Phantom saddle and the Predator platform. And if you're wondering why I've chosen to use their gear above all else, here's the cliff notes. They're innovative and pushing the mobile hunting forward overall. They cut no corners and prioritize the safety and performance of their gear. They care about the community that they've created, and their gear allows me to hunt free. And above all else, I like to support good people doing good work. If you're interested in upping your mobile hunting game, then head to tetherednation.com. This podcast is brought to you by Skull Brew Coffee Company. Skull Brew Coffee roasts premium single origin coffee, guaranteeing to deliver the freshest coffee directly to your doorstep. The kicker? They're 2% for conservation certified and donate 10% of their proceeds back to organizations who support the interests of our hunting community. So go to skullbrewcoffee.com and pick up one of their 3-killer roasts and fuel your hunt and fill more tags with Skull Brew Coffee. Welcome to the Truth from a Stand Deer Hunting Podcast, brought to you by Skull Brew Coffee Company. I'm your host, Clint Campbell, and you're listening to episode number 232. Today I'm joined by my good friend Tate, and we're talking military, family, and bow hunting. So stay tuned. What is up, everyone? Happy Wednesday to you. Hope you're doing well. Hope you are feeling fine. Hope everyone had a happy and safe Memorial Day weekend celebration. Hopefully you had a chance to spend some time outside, spend some time with some family, and most importantly, just kind of taking some time to remember why we are celebrating this past weekend. So I want to pass along that happy Memorial Day weekend salutation. Today's episode, going to just kind of get jumped right into it. Not gonna draw this thing out. Is with my buddy Tate. Tate's a gentleman who has been a friend of my wife's family for a lot of years. He's the one who introduced me to bow hunting. Was my mentor early on, still is a guy that I talk to pretty consistently about bow hunting and just oftentimes life in general. Tate's just has a lot of world experience. He's a veteran. He's traveled all over, and he's actually getting ready to retire this year. And so the one thing, you want to maybe, if you don't listen all the way through to the episodes, you might want to listen all the way through to the end of this episode. I want to give a special thanks to our buddies over at Tethered. They helped me kind of put together this end segment for Tate as he's getting ready to retire, which was a special moment for he and I to share. And want to make sure that I pass along my, make mention that Tethered kind of helped put this together. I had an idea of how to maybe send him off in style into retirement on this Memorial Day weekend. And whenever I kind of mentioned the idea to the folks at Tethered, they were all about it and couldn't wait to help. So big thanks to the guys over at Tethered for helping making this end segment with Tate happen. Also want to make a quick mention. Velvet Fest is right around the corner. My buddies over at Exodus, they have a sale going on right now. If you don't know, you can basically save 20% off on everything. That's their render, cell camera, their SP18 solar panels, the lift cameras, basically almost entirely store-wide. You can save 20% on all their gear by using the promo code YEAR6. YEAR6, that's YEAR6. Of course, this is only while supplies last, so make sure you head over to ExodusOutdoorGear.com and lock in your savings and get yourself some gear and get ready for Velvet Fest. So with that, we're going to go ahead and jump into today's podcast with my good buddy Tate. As always, thank you all for listening. All right, folks, welcome back to another episode of the Truth from the Stand Deer Hunting Podcast. We are coming to you on location. I'm on a little travel mission here back home to visit some family and stuff over the Memorial holiday, and have on so this guy is like I almost kind of refer to you as a character on Seinfeld on this podcast because you make a lot of appearances in commentary. but you come on like you've been on once. This is your second time, right?
I want to be Kramer.
You want to be? You're totally the Kramer of the podcast, man. But the gentleman you hear on the other line is my buddy, my good buddy, the gentleman who got me into bow hunting and is responsible for the madness that I create at my home with my wife. None other than Mr. Tater, Kenny Williams. What's going on, buddy?
Hey, I'm right back at you here, man.
Awesome, yeah.
Thanks for the Seinfeld promo. There.
Yeah, well, it's funny because like, I'll be.
I didn't know that was coming.
Yeah. Well, I like to pull a rabbit out of a hat once in a while.
You
know?
do,
yeah. But you get mentioned a lot on the podcast because we talk frequently about hunting. We talk a lot about life just in general.
We do.
And so I'll make a comment about, whatever it is, whether it was, hunting in Ohio or coming back turkey hunting a couple weeks ago with you or whatever.
Sure.
And I'll just make mention of like my buddy Tate. You've heard of him. You've been on the podcast. You know him. You love him. Right. And so you get referenced a lot, but you make very few appearances. You just kind of slide in and out with cameos.
I'm a cameo kind of guy.
Yeah, you are, man. So, if I lived back home or if I lived closer, you'd be on, or if you live closer to me, you'd be on more often because it's always good just to kind of cut up with you. But wanted to kind of have this session with you today for a couple reasons. One, we haven't had a chance to talk on the podcast for a while. Two, it's the Memorial Day holiday. And you're a veteran. You have a family of veterans, and so I wanted to kind of try to have a veteran on. Three, I just like talking to you. Like, right? we talk probably once a week, and just catch up.
We get after it, man. We get after it.
And then you've got some big things that are kind of happening in the future, and so we've talked about that just in passing. But I just thought it'd be cool to kind of do a podcast on it. So let's just start with how the hell's your spring been? Well, first off, man, I appreciate you turning off the heat for me when I come into town. So for those out there that are listening,
it's what's today's date? May 28th.
May 28th. Yeah.
Give them the degrees out there right now.
I want to say when I got in my truck, I think it was like 48 or something like that. Right. It was in the like high 80s all week. And so, for those out there listening, Tater has a man shed, right? And that's where he and I will podcast when I come into town and we go to do a podcast. And so we talked earlier this week, and I said, hey, we should probably do this at like 8:00 in the morning before the heat gets to us. You know what I mean? And like get it in, get it out, get it done while the weather's still nice. And,
And we both agreed that would be a very, very good idea.
It'd be prudent even, And so I roll into town. Of course, it's just piss and rain the whole weekend. It's 48 degrees. So we're out in the man shed, bundled up, trying to stay warm. He did do me a solid, though. Make sure I was comfy, had a little heater on. So he's a good host.
Got to look after my part.
That's right, man. So, but let's just start with, how the hell has your spring been, man? You've been getting out. We got after gobbles one day together and we got basically rained out.
Well, the day we hunted together was a lot like this one.
Almost exactly.
I think there was more precip that day.
Yeah.
But the spring has been slow. I haven't turkey hunted that much. In all honesty, the second Friday of the season was the morning that if I have you with me, we probably get some guns off.
Right.
Good goblin morning, good responses from turkeys, and they came in, and they worked good for me. But as every turkey hunter will tell you, they just never poked up over the bank. That was just very slight and 15 yards to my right.
Right.
And that's where I would have had you or anybody else camped out.
Set up and ready. Yeah. I've heard that across I've said this on the podcast before, full transparency. I only got out that one, that one trip essentially, you know what I mean? For the season. I had I changed jobs and was,
Well, you needed a getaway weekend too, by what I understand. By talking to you.
Yeah, I totally needed a getaway. And that was really what that was. It was more mental health aspect of it than it was like
it's all mental health for me now.
Yeah, exactly. It was more that than anything than, trying to kill something necessarily. And it was what the doctor ordered.
Exactly.
But even like my other buddies and stuff like that I've talked to that are bigger turkey hunters than I am. Like I was talking with this is a little foreshadowing for people that are listening. My buddy Tony Peterson, there will be a podcast that comes out with him after this one releases. He's a big time turkey hunter, And look, when he had an off season, he killed 3 birds this year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
Take that with a little bit of a grain of salt. He even said that when we were talking, he's like, look, I'm not complaining. I killed 3 birds, you know, but he was even saying like, it was tough. Like it was tough to get them to work, and they weren't committing in places where he previously would have them commit, and not with ease, but, you know, he could work them, you know, and it just wasn't working out the same.
Well, to touch on your point right there, Clint, I know, and I have talked to a lot of good turkey hunters up here this spring, and it's been weird.
Yeah.
One real good friend of mine, good ass turkey hunter, never worked a bird, never even worked a bird to the Thursday of the second week.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, and I've heard that from everybody else. You know, though, and this is spring after spring. You got some gobbling on the limb.
Right.
They hit the ground. They answer you good for a little bit.
Right.
And then where'd they go?
Yeah.
And I've heard hens all spring, and I've heard hens go to gobblers when I've been out.
Right.
And, you know, nature wins.
Nature and biology typically wins, right? You even see that in the deer woods, like when you're hunting the rut, right?
Exactly.
It's like you see a deer, you see a doe come through, you're almost certain there's going to be a buck following, you know, what caliber, you know, or what maturity remains to be seen until he gives you a visual.
Yeah,
but trying to pull him off,
it's hard to beat the real thing, bro.
It is hard to beat the real thing. It is hard to beat the real thing, man.
Especially when the girls are coming. Well, the males are running females in November, but with deer. But in the spring, hey man, when you're at the bar and the women are coming to you,
why are you?
It's all good, bro.
Yeah, why are you gonna mess up a good thing you got going on?
I'm not gonna mess that up.
You know,
I'm not going to somebody else that's up there squawking at me.
Exactly.
I got a couple right in front of me.
Yeah, and even John. I mean, John was trying to kind of re-up on his slam this year.
Did he accomplish the merit?
I haven't talked to him yet, but he didn't. The Black Hills smoked him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I talked to him after his second trip, and I need to have him back on just to kind of talk about it. But he had everything kind of wrapped up except South Dakota, you know, and he went out early, and he just had super cold weather, like in the 30s.
Yeah.
You know, I think he was even into like the low, like 20s, maybe even in the teens at night. You know, just like a gnarly cold snap that you'll get out west like that.
Yeah.
You know,
that's
in the spring.
the Dakotas for you.
Yeah, and then from there he made a second trip out, and at that point he said it was just like they would be on private and he couldn't get them to come over, you know, and stuff like that. And he said just the amount of pressure that he saw out there that during that time frame was a lot, you know. And when he says a lot, like he's saying a lot for there, you know what I mean? It's not like what you would see in Pennsylvania or Ohio or whatever for turkey season or whatever, Michigan or whatever the case is, with bigger hunter numbers. But for the area, you know, and he said specifically the area that he was in, right? He's like, last year when he was there, he didn't see any of that. This year he was like, it was like, I saw just a ton of trucks and a ton of people. He's like, so the weather again, I don't think was great for him that trip. And I think what he was saying, at least when we talked on the phone, was that it was a combination probably of the weather and these birds are getting educated pretty quick, you know? And then he just made another trip out, I want to say last week. I think he was out for a handful of days trying to fill the tag. And I haven't talked to him since, but I know that he didn't fill the tag because I was following him, his Instagram post to see what he was doing or whatever. And he just didn't make it happen.
They might have got just pressured up too much.
Yeah. And it's crazy because last year, I mean, he did it and he did it in a handful of days, basically in every state he went to, you know what I mean? And this year he was in I think it was I want to say it was and I'll have him on and he'll tell the story, but I think it was like the first or second day when he was in Florida, he killed his Osceola.
Okay.
And then he went to Texas after that. And I want to say it was like his first day in Texas. It wasn't any longer than I think his second day, which was pretty consistent with last year. I think he killed one like in the first 30 minutes that he was on the ground in Texas.
Well, that sucks.
Yeah, that's awful. And then he did some hog hunting too, I think, while he was down there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Good. And then he came back to Iowa, and it took him just a couple days to kill his Iowa bird. I want to say he told me like 3 days or something like that, to maybe 4, that he had one in particular that he's playing okey doke with, where it was like it would show but just wouldn't get to the right spot. Of course, like to remind everyone out there listening, like he's sometimes he'll have a camera guy, like in Texas. I think his buddy War Danger, like that's his handle on Instagram.
Okay.
I think, filmed for him, and I think he had a buddy that went with him to the Dakotas at least for one trip. But like in Iowa, like he's predominantly filming all that stuff himself, and some of the other trips too. Like he doesn't always have a camera guy; he's self-filming that
Yeah.
and doing it with a bow. Killing turkeys with a bow in general, like that's tough,
Yeah, it
and
is.
and he's self-filming it, and so he took him a couple days in Iowa because it was just he wasn't set up 100% right. Like a bird came in, and he watched him kind of. He was telling me when we were talking on the phone, he was watching him kind of. The last time before he killed him, like he saw what he was doing and he kind of was like, oh, okay, jokester.
All right.
Like, I got your number. So he went and set up the next day and he was like, if you're going to do the same thing, I'm just going to set up different. And that was it.
Took care of
him. But
well, he was knocking that slam out pretty quick then.
He was.
For the first 3 birds.
Yeah, I mean, well, he went to the Dakotas, I think, before he went to Texas for his first trip.
Okay.
And so he kind of he was out there for, I want to say that trip was like 4 days maybe or something like that. And he just didn't, weather was shit, and just came back and recognized like, oh, weather sucked. I'm going to have to go back and, try to figure it out on a second trip. But all the other ones did happen pretty quick. And I want to say like, I mean, good Lord, I think he spent maybe, and he'll give me the exact when we talk, but I know it was at least 14 days, if not more, like in South Dakota in the Black Hills trying to kill a turkey. Or it might have been closer to 20 days. You know what I mean? Like last year it happened in like 2 or 3 or whatever it was, like a handful of days. Like I don't think it was even a week. And this year he was out there for.
That last can be the hardest and the longest.
Mm-hmm, yeah. It was, but I was like, still, man, I was like, you killed a pile of turkeys this year, in a short period of time with a bow and filmed all of it. And, it's, which makes the slam he had last year, I think maybe even just a little bit more special because it's hard to double up.
Yeah, yeah, especially 2 years in a row.
Yeah. I was hoping he would do it though, because I wanted to get the T-shirt. He was going to make a T-shirt about it, like the back-to-back slam champion.
Nice, nice.
Which would have been cool. I don't know if he'll have.
I would have tried to start an apparel line.
right, exactly, man. So transitioning from turkeys, because our turkey season was both kind of abysmal. Mine was short-lived, and you got after it a little bit, but just couldn't get one to work. But we're here on the Memorial Day weekend. I'd be remiss if we didn't just talk a little bit, about Memorial Day and, you as a veteran, what it means to you. And, my family's all, military, my dad, my grandfathers, my uncles, and I'm really literally the only male in my family with my last name to not go to the military. Like all my cousins with my last name have gone, even cousins without, but like the Campbell line has all been to the military. And I was kind of the first one that didn't go. So I have an appreciation for it, just because I grew up around it and stuff like that.
Well, your dad you told me before, he was a Navy man.
He was a Navy man, yeah. And my uncle Bobby was a Marine. Pretty sure he was a Marine, and he was in Vietnam. My uncle Ronnie, I think he was Army, if I'm not mistaken, and he was in Vietnam. My uncle Bill was not in Vietnam. But he was Air Force, if I'm not mistaken. My cousin Bobby Jr. was Air Force. My cousin Steven was Marine. He's out now. He's a little younger than me. My grandfather, my dad's dad, was Army and was in World War II.
God bless him.
And I think I'm trying to remember if he was maybe in Korea too, and I don't remember off the top of my head if he was or not. I don't remember if he got out before that or not. But yeah, so it's like, all the way, I can track my family back all the way to World War II. You know what I mean? And then I'm sure if I talked to, I never really had much of a chance to talk to my grandfather about it. It was really weird. Before he passed, my dad, he said he would never talk much about like his time in the service at all, like to any family members, no one really ever brought it up to him either,
Yeah.
Maybe it was just me being young and dumb and, maybe because they were his sons, he was a gruff man. You know what I mean? Like he was short with words, limited with praise. When I say limited with praise, never, you know what I mean?
Well, I have a parallel with that with, 2 great uncles. My dad's uncle, my great uncles were in World War II.
Mm-hmm.
And I know Ralph was battle seasoned. He was at the Bulge.
Okay.
And knew very little about it,
Yeah.
even with his siblings and his nephews,
Yeah.
until he passed away. And they're going through helping his wife,
Right.
sort stuff out and clean up and all that. And they found all kinds of stuff
Yeah.
that Ralph never talked about.
Right. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I remember it was after my dad's mom had passed, and we were hanging out with my grandfather. And he was okay. You know what I mean? Like, he was a tough old bird, man. Like, he
Yep.
was like one of the toughest men I ever knew. And it was funny because as I got older, he always seemed. I lived with him for a while growing up. When my family went through like a divorce and stuff like that. Like, I stayed with them for a couple years, and so I had like the firsthand like upbringing of like what my dad got. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, no better thing could have happened for you at the time.
Oh yeah,
At the time.
100% disciplinarian,
Sure.
tough. But it was weird. Like, he always seemed kind of gruff, but he was actually one of the most like caring men you ever
Gotcha.
met.
Yeah.
Just considerate. But I remember after Grandma passed, and I was talking to Pap, and I knew he got shot in World War II.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I knew he took a bullet, and but no one really ever asked him much about it. And I just said, Pap, I was like, you took a bullet in World War II, right? And he's like, yeah. I was like, how did that go down? And he was like, and everyone in the room kind of looked at me like, I can't believe he's asking. You know what I mean?
No.
And he was like,
I think sometimes they do want to get it out there.
And so he was like, well, this is what happened. And like, he told me the whole story, and we sat there for, I don't know. Like I said, my grandpap was a man of very, very few words. He didn't say a whole lot.
Sure.
But he sat there and we probably talked for 2 hours just about what he experienced in World War II and what the time period was like, and like what he was going through and what the country was going through, and what his experience was over there. And he wasn't like your uncle, like in the Battle of the Bulge, or he wasn't part of D-Day. He was young. I think when he went, he was maybe 17.
Yeah.
When he went, and he was actually at the tail end of World War II. So I think if I'm remembering correctly, I think he was there for like 2 years before it ended. And so he wasn't in like I don't want to discount what he did. You know what I mean? Just in comparison to guys that landed on the beaches and stuff like that, it's like he kind of came in toward the tail end. And I think that's partially why he never, when I thought about it, I felt like that was partially why he never really wanted to talk much about it. Because I felt like that, especially that generation, like they didn't ever want to seem like they were stealing valor. You know what I mean? And I think he kind of always felt that, like, yeah, I was in World War II.
He didn't have to make any amends for that.
Right. But it's almost like I felt like he didn't want to talk much about it, because I think he recognized that even though he was part of it, there were people who sacrificed way more and was asked way more of them than was ever being asked of him.
Yeah.
I think, and he was always, and that's why I say he was a very compassionate and kind of like understanding person. Like, once you got past the gruff exterior, and I think that he had a deep appreciation. Oh, I know he had a deep appreciation for what the people before him did.
Well, I might be wrong, but maybe he knew some fellas that never made it back home.
I would say,
too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as well as I do, like this area, where I grew up, where you grew up, it's there's been a lot of people who have given a lot.
Well, let me mention this real quick here. We got 2 bridges in Everett, Pennsylvania. That's where this is taking place at. And 300 yards behind you, Clint, is the West End Bridge. That's named after Ellis Wheat, Medal of Honor winner in World War II. And on the East End is Robert Hartsock Bridge, Medal of Honor winner from out of Vietnam.
Really?
2 local boys that gave all. And none of that is ever lost on me.
Yeah. Well, that's the one thing I always loved talking about, not just like, some of the stuff you would share with me during your time in service and your family and stuff like that, because I'm always fascinated by it. But you're very well read when it comes to history, military history, and things like that. Like, you have an appreciation for it beyond the time that you spent. You actually seek out knowledge and information about it beyond your own personal experience. Right?
I have, and I still do, and that was that was part of me even before I joined the Air Force out
Right.
of high school.
Right.
I was. It was an interest, but as I got older, and especially after I served, it turned into a deep appreciation.
Right.
Because you've heard it 1,000 times, or World War II, the greatest generation.
Yep.
They were.
Yeah.
In my eyes.
Oh
They,
yeah, in mine
were.
too. Yeah, for sure.
They saved the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, let's
Point blank.
let's don't mix bones about it.
Right.
They saved the world.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah. And yeah, and that's what I always kind of like, just appreciate talking to you about. And my dad too. I mean, my dad's a veteran, and he has a deep appreciation and reads about it, and and he doesn't talk much about it necessarily,
You don't have to.
No.
You don't have to.
No, but it was I know that it was very formative for him, that particular time. And for a lot of people around here, it's it's a way to see the world. It's a way to gain experience.
Very much so.
It's a way to
learn a lot about yourself
and gain some skills and stuff like that. And that was really my dad's, like, I don't want to say it was his motive because it was more of a family thing, but coming from an area where, when you're talking during that, and you and my dad aren't too awfully far apart in age, it wasn't like there was, the area wasn't brimming with opportunity, because it was even more rural then than it is now.
Yeah.
This area is still really rural.
Yep.
And you go back even that much further, and it was just,
there wasn't much out there.
No,
there wasn't much out there.
And so for Dad, I know it was more of family couldn't afford to go to college.
Sure.
Right. And
same here.
Yep. And so if he was going to make something of himself, then he was going to need to go to the military and gain some skills that he could translate whenever he got out of the service, and be able to have a family and support him, and so that was what he did. He was a welder in the Navy. That was, and that's, that's the skill that he gained.
Well,
and just machining and just maintenance stuff in general. Like, and that's how he gained and he grew up on like farming and stuff like that too. So mechanically inclined pretty much all of his life, but sharpened those things like when he went to the Navy.
And you had to.
Yeah.
To perform.
Yeah.
And to get paid.
That it always comes back to that getting paid.
Well, you gotta get paid. You gotta get proficient. When I went in right out of high school, I'll be honest, I needed some discipline.
Yeah.
It was the late 70s.
That's why my dad was trying to get me into. Like, I remember, like, I think I've told you this story. I was a hellion, right? I was a troublemaker, not gonna lie. I was pretty smart as far as like book work and stuff like that, right? But it was more of an application issue and like focus issue, and wanting to be in trouble issue, right? And so, my dad really saw two paths for me, I think, right? I think he saw three. Like, I think one was like, WTF, I got no clue what's going to happen to this kid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think the other path was, he's good at wrestling. Can I get him just to double down on that and maybe go on like a scholarship to like a D2 school to go get an education and like get him in wrestling? Because when I started wrestling, it was really good for me for discipline and stuff like that. It helped me focus and like narrow me in, and I'd stop getting in quite as much trouble and stuff like that. And then, old Paul Clark, right, was the wrestling coach, right? Paul.
Yeah.
Now his younger brother, and I can't remember his name for the life of me. Paul went to Clarion and wrestled. His brother went to Virginia Military Institute, and then when he got out was a Marine.
Was that Jeff?
Jeff Clark, yeah, Jeff.
Okay.
And so he came back after he got out of the Marines and was coaching, like was assistant coaching the team. And he and I just hit it off. I was probably a little like Jeff, probably a little bit of a troublemaker, like he maybe was a little bit.
Oh, he was not.
When he was younger, but I was pretty good at like science and math and stuff like that. And it was more just like, he saw me as like, if I can just channel the anger in the right way, man, this kid is like ready made to be a Marine. You know what I mean? And so like, he was on me for probably, like sophomore, junior, senior year, like trying to like direct me toward the Marines. And my dad was all in on it. He was like, yes, let's send him
Sure,
there,
he was.
And so I had a Marine recruiter at my house, like every Saturday, my junior year of like the entire fall, like the Marine recruiter would come to my house and sit down and talk to us. And, I think it was a guy that Dad knew, actually. I don't know that for certain. I'm guessing because it felt like the guy was there a lot. And I'm like, well, why? If I kept saying no, I don't want to. Like, why would he keep coming unless someone, either my dad or Jeff or somebody, was saying like, no, you gotta.
I think
turn
there
this
was a
kid.
tie there somewhere.
Might have had to been, but yeah. So anyway, I don't even know where we were going with that. It was, oh, you needed some direction. It was good for you. So yeah,
I needed some discipline. I'm pretty sure they'd give me a diploma just to get my ass out of there.
Right.
But with that being said, I was already delayed entry
Okay.
into the Air Force. So on July 28th of that summer after graduation, I knew what I was doing.
Right.
So I didn't give a rat's ass about anything.
Right.
And here's how bad it was. I was an above average baseball player.
Yes, you were.
And I had a couple letters from a couple D1 schools.
Mm-hmm.
I don't talk about that too much because I probably screwed up.
Right.
But the late 70s.
There's a lot of fun to be had in the late 70s.
Think about that time. I'm sure a lot of listeners out there might relate to that time period.
Right.
And there was only three things on my mind. We don't have to really talk about them.
Everyone can guess what those three things were.
I loved playing baseball,
Uh-huh.
and I was good at it. And Western Kentucky and Southern Illinois, they weren't baseball powerhouses. I knew that, but it was a chance to further an education and play some more baseball. Where that led Clint,
who knows?
Who knows?
Right.
But me, I had it all figured out, didn't I? I didn't want to go to school anymore.
Right.
Didn't want no part of that.
Yep.
So, went in the Air Force, served my country proudly, and the rest is history.
Yeah. Where were you off to when you first went in? Like, where did you do, I guess, basic training and all that
Basic training was Lackland Air Force Base, San Antonio, Texas, in July.
Oh, it's beautiful there in July, I hear.
Yes, it is. It's very comfortable.
Right.
No humidity, none of that. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
did 8 weeks there.
And then where were you stationed at for, like?
Did tech school in Lowry Air Force Base, Denver, Colorado.
Okay.
Pretty cool area.
Yeah.
And then I was off to Eglin Air Force Base on the Gulf Coast of Florida, between Pensacola and Panama City, Florida.
Okay. And then you did some time overseas too.
I did 13 months in Incirlik Air Base, Turkey, which was
I've talked to you about
awesome,
that,
dude.
and you loved that.
That was, well, I was an ammo troop and spent a lot of time on flight lines with small bombs and big bombs, and it was for keeps over there. If you understand what I'm saying, it was
right.
It was for real,
right?
You know, and I really liked that. I needed a dose of that.
Right. I needed a dose of reality and consequence.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We had briefings every morning about the bad guys out there. Now this is 1982, 8 years before the Gulf War. There was no talk about
Bin Laden or Al Qaeda.
None of
at that time it was actually the Russians, and
it was still the Cold War, and we still,
well, not just that, but wasn't there was conflict over there in the 80s between Russia and what became Bin Laden and Al Qaeda.
Yeah,
essentially, right? It's
like the Russian-Afghan war was in full swing.
Yeah,
and
so our vested interest, I imagine, and this is where I'll show my naiveness about the history around that area, is I would imagine our presence there was more in the realm of, if we need to step in to kind of check Russia, we need to be there to make sure they're not continuing gaining ground.
We needed to be close.
Yeah.
With air power anyway.
Right.
And we were.
Right.
Both of us might be completely off base there on that, but it was a strategic area.
Right. Right.
And Incirlik was a strategic base.
I would say maybe you could I don't know if you could equate it to, if someone out there listening, has more info, like send me an email so we, correct this or whatever. But because I'm just going off of what I understand of the world that at that time, I would guess maybe it would be, you could almost use an analog of kind of like what Kuwait was to Iraq, the first, Desert Storm War.
Yeah.
Right. It wasn't per se involved, but it was a strategic air base or a strategic base by which we could perform ops out of easily into country.
Sure.
You know,
That's what it was.
Yeah. Nice. And so you were there for 13 months,
Yeah.
right? So while you were in the service, you know, getting back to hunting, right? You know, did you get to do any hunting while you were in the service, or was it just completely head down, performing your tasks? And
no, I was fortunate enough to schedule a couple leaves,
okay,
especially when I was stateside,
right,
to get back home for Thanksgiving and deer season.
nice, yeah,
I was fortunate enough to do that.
that's good.
I think twice.
Okay, that's not
And
bad,
and it was just a flat out good time.
right?
You know, family, Thanksgiving, one of my favorite, if not my favorite time of the year.
Yeah, for a bunch of reasons.
For a bunch of reasons.
Yeah.
A lot of reasons. But deer hunting was a big part of it. Well, a huge part of it.
Right.
And got that done.
Right.
Went back to work.
Yep. And you got some tags hanging up there that I was actually I scoped while we're sitting here. And I don't know if I've ever noticed those. Are those your tags?
That's my dad's and mine.
And yours?
Dog tags, yeah.
Nice. That's awesome. And then you have a flag over here.
Yeah, that's for Dad.
Yep. That's awesome. I don't know who has my grandfather's flag. I think one of my uncles may have, or one of my I think one of my aunts actually has it. And that was one of, I don't want to say one of the coolest things, but like I had never been part of that, where, you know, even my grandfather, when he passed and he was, you know, his you know, mid 80s, you know, you sometimes think about when these fellas get older or whatever, that people forget what they gave sometimes, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember being at the, you know, the ceremonies and stuff like that after he passed. And I was surprised because, I mean, I knew he was in the service, right? I knew he and I had talked about it. You know, he shared stuff with me. And going back to that, like, it was funny after I asked him about the World War II stuff, like, we left. And my dad was like, all the years I've known that man, he's like, he's never, ever talked to anybody about that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which was cool because it felt special that he and I were able to kind of share that, and he was willing to kind of share it with me, which was awesome. Something, obviously it made an impression on me because I still remember it to this day, and I remember it very vividly.
Well, if you think it's vivid now, it'll be vivid till you leave.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, exactly.
That's something you'll never forget.
Right. And they had, when we walked in, you know, they had his boots, and like they gave him the full thing, you know. Yeah. And I was like, it was just something to see, because I'd never seen that before, and I was just really appreciative that like they didn't forget, you know, everything he did and stuff like that. And that was just, you know, that was really impactful, because that's another vivid memory I have, is just seeing that it's like, even after you served and your service was long gone, and maybe others have forgotten, like those who are most closely tied to it don't, you know.
No, you never do.
Yeah. And so that was,
you never do.
And that was cool for me to see. I think my dad certainly appreciated it, and you know, his children appreciated it, and stuff like that, which was awesome. Well,
for my dad, it was an Air Force vet of 8 years, and when he passed, a simple ceremony, family and the honor guard from Everett.
Yeah, the gun salute. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that was the first time I might have had a tear in my eye, was 21 guns at the cemetery.
Yep.
But them tears were sadness. They were proud tears. They were a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
There's the man that introduced me to hunting.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. You know, it's like, you think about,
I went and beat briars for rabbits with them and loved every minute of it.
I remember you telling me about that. You were like, we didn't run a dog very often. I was the dog.
I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved it. He let me, I felt like Daniel Boone out there sometimes. He'd let me take my first squirrel with 9 years old, you know, and I just thought I was the cock of the walk, you know?
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, obviously this weekend's a very important weekend. We don't want to, you know, we're going to transition to deer hunting here, but I wanted to just make sure we kind of made mention of, you know, your service, and we traded some stories and stuff like that, because I always am interested in hearing.
And I'm glad you did.
People's backstory.
And I think Well, I'm sure a lot of your listeners will
Yeah.
appreciate that and think think the same thing.
For sure. But anyway, we're always here to talk about deer hunting.
Always.
And Tate and I always do a ton of that. So we're going to make a hard transition to talk a little bow hunting and past, present, and future. Maybe more about the future.
The future.
Yeah. But how was your season this year? I mean, I know you and I kind of talked, but it was it was probably similar to mine to a degree. But how did things shake out for you this year?
It did not shake out at all.
There was no shaking.
There was no shaking. We touched on this before we started the podcast that I can't even tell the listeners I can't even brew up a good lie.
Can't even embellish.
No embellishment. It was tough.
Yeah.
And I've been down that road before. I had one encounter that in PA that was worthy, but it only lasted 2 minutes.
Right.
When that doe went on the other side of the fallen down tree.
Oh, yeah, down there on the point.
Down there off the spine.
Yep.
I knew what was going on.
Yep.
And a couple minutes later, he showed up. And I knew what was going to transpire.
Right, yeah. It's like you could foretell the future. You're like, yeah, I've seen this play out before.
He was a good deer. He was a good deer. One of the couple of deer we had on camera down there that I wouldn't hesitate to take. When I saw him, I knew he was a shooter.
Right.
So I didn't look at horns anymore.
Right.
And he didn't let me look at horns anymore. I tried, once he popped into view, and I knew what he was going to do. So I threw a grunt at him.
Right.
To tell you the truth, Clint, I don't think he even heard it.
Right.
He was so blind with rut.
Right.
He did throw a glance in my direction,
Mm-hmm.
but just as quick as he did that, he turned to what he was doing initially and finished that off. That whole episode took, from the time I saw the doe to I saw the deer and the buck, and he got back on her 2 minutes. And that was
the excitement of your season for the most part, for as far as bucks go, right?
As far as bucks go in PA, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I had some other encounters. 2 days before that, I had a doe show up with me about 8:30, and there had been some heavy chasing in there earlier.
Right.
And I had glimpsed some horn.
Right.
I really thought one of them guys were tagging along with her, so she camped out with me for about 25 minutes. Nobody showed up. Like I said,
how early was that? Or I guess not how early, but like what was the date on that?
This was November.
Okay.
First week, I'll go. Geez, Clint, I don't know exactly for sure.
I was just curious.
How
if
about
it was
4, 5, or 6? The fifth, 6.
Yeah, I was just curious because it would that time of year. It's like I would certainly think that there's going to be some visitation.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just wondering because I was like, well, if it was October, it might just be hanging around, seeing what's happening, but not showing a whole lot of interest at that point.
I really, in past experience, I've been down this road so many times, but I really thought that somebody would drop in.
Right.
Whether it's a spike that has no clue on what the hell he's doing, or something kind of decent that's been shadowing her.
Right.
But
did you get out? Now, did you take your classic time off like to in October, like time frame for like some weekends and stuff like that? Because for me, I had delusions of grandeur as far as working from home, like the blessing of the pandemic. For me, it was like, hey, I'm going to work from home, so I don't have to get into the office. I can slip out for some morning hunts, maybe wrap some things up early and get out early, catch an evening or two here or there.
Yeah.
But I didn't get out as much as I would have liked to, just because, with that came along, my daughter was doing virtual school, at least a couple days a week. And so I had to be home with her, and because she's too young to be left home by herself, like all day or whatever. Yeah. So my kind of plan of like utilizing this like work from home opportunity to like skip out into the woods in the morning and not miss work, but my home is closer to where I hunt than my job is. And so, I've gone out in the morning before and then gone into the office, and it's a lot because it's just a further drive and I got to leave on time. So it's not, and I've done it, and, I'll do it on days where I feel like I have a good opportunity. I'm not going to waste them on days I don't think I'm going to have a shot or whatever. Or I'll do it on days where I'm getting the right weather for the place that's closest to my home, and it's all about, those hunts are more about convenience than like, high priority targets.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? Where it's
Yeah.
like, I'm just trying to get out so I can get out more often, and I'm going to do it close to home, and I'm going to target those weather days where the wind's going to work out for me for that specific spot. I may or may not have intelligence on a good deer that is there that I want to kill.
But just being out in the woods, you just never know.
That's just it. It's
Maybe one day something really slides in my direction.
time in tree.
The
You know what I
chips
mean?
all come together.
Time in tree. And for nothing else,
Yeah.
it's like I'm a advocate of just spending time in a tree to learn. Like the more time I observe and spend time with deer, the better off I am.
Gotcha.
You know, and so that's kind of the idea. So I didn't get out nearly as much as I wanted to. Then went on the trip out to the Midwest. But you also went to Ohio,
Mhm.
and you changed it up this year, because the years past when we've hunted that particular area together has been I think the first week of November is usually when we've been, but what we've seen like on camera and stuff like that, it really hammers like that Halloween time frame to like the 3rd roughly, right?
Mhm.
And then it kind of dries up, you know, and I think I killed my buck on like the 6th, if I'm not mistaken, the one year we were out there. But it seemed like when we ran cameras and stuff like that, it would really pick up almost like that second week, or almost starting around like the 8th, 9th, maybe 10th into that second week or whatever. And so you ended up going out.
Well, I've did the last 2 years. I've did both spectrums.
That's right. Yeah, because last year you went out earlier
Yeah,
trying to catch that front end.
Yeah, I tried to catch the front end. Not much happening.
Mm-hmm.
And last year, I think it was starting to ramp back up when it was time for me to go.
Right. And what were the dates again on that? I forget what the.
I think I slid into town on like November 9, and I planned on a 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, or a 10, 11. I might have got out there around the 11th, Clint. I'm not sure. I wanted to catch the later end
Right.
of it.
I can't remember when you were headed out there, because it wasn't. I'm trying to think where I was at.
I don't know if you were still in Mizzou or you and Chad had got up into
Ohio. We would have got to Ohio about the 8th, I think, roughly, or the 8th. Yeah, the 8th, I think, is when I got there. I feel like you hadn't got there yet, because I'm pretty sure I called you.
I had.
And you hadn't left yet.
Nope, I hadn't.
Yeah. Also because you were watching the weather, and the weather completely sucked and was warm as shit.
Yep.
You know, so I think you were also, if I'm remembering correctly, you were trying to wait out some of that to see if you could get the weather to break a little bit.
Well, it
didn't.
It did and it didn't. Drove the whole way out in rain.
Mm-hmm.
Had a wet start to my time out there, but in just the 3.5, 4 days I hunted out there, I saw more deer than I did in the whole season.
Well, and I think
in PA, and this is rifle combined. Not that I got out much with a rifle either.
Right. But you also, I think after we talked, when you got back from Ohio, you, for this year, you know, you are contemplating, well, I think you even made some moves this past year too, just based on the deer you were seeing, because they were traveling in a specific area. I'm trying to remember.
Well, I didn't hunt the killing tree.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Yeah.
And what I did was just, you picture yourself in the killing tree and you look kind of at the 1 o'clock. And
down where that little draw is.
You see that kind of plateau out there. I was up on that little plateau right there, and it was a good move.
Really?
It was a good move.
So where were the deer coming from in that area?
Up behind me.
Coming right direct
out of the thick.
Yep.
Some deer came out. Some of the deer came out from the thick that's off to our right in the killing tree. You know how that's laying out in there, but it was a good move.
Yeah.
But at the same time, Clint, I heard and saw enough activity in and around the killing tree to where I was contemplating just going back and forth every day too.
Right.
It was time well spent out there. And I had an opportunity on the last day, the Saturday morning. It was about 25 degrees, real crispy, real nice. About 9 o'clock, he pushed a doe out of the thicket right there.
Now, what tree were you in there at that point?
in my
In the
new one
up on the point.
up on the little plateau out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I really thought he was going to slide up past
Now,
me.
did he come out from behind you, or did he come out just let's just say north is in front of us, just for the listener's perspective. Did he come from your east to west, or did he come from the south behind
east
you?
to west? I was looking down towards the road, like in the dam area over in there.
Right.
I was sitting in there like that,
Okay.
and he pushed her out of that thicket that would have been off to my left.
Right.
At the time.
Yep. Got it. Nice. And that was what, 9:30 you said?
9:30, in around there.
All right. So I'm assuming, like, is your plan to head back there this year?
Yeah, I'm going back.
Yeah, I knew you would.
I have to.
It's a great spot to go, man. It's like, I've talked about it on the show. It's just one of those little areas that, it turns on around the same time every year. You're gonna, if you put your time in that general area, just on that ridge.
Yes.
You could hunt a couple different areas on that ridge.
Yeah.
You could spend a week hunting that ridge and just hunt different spots.
You could bebop all over that place up there and probably see deer every day.
Yeah.
You know that as well as I do.
Yeah, I mean, where we have the quote-unquote killing tree, and where I killed. So the reason for people out there listening, if you haven't heard this kind of story before, I'll make it quick. We were there a handful of years ago. I stumbled upon this place while I was out scouting, kind of got lost, found it on my way back of getting found, and literally kind of got into a tree there because it was, evening, and I wanted to have something set up for me to get into in the morning, and ended up picking this tree. And it just so happened when I went back and looked, it's literally in a saddle between, and when I say a saddle, you'll hear Chad and I talk a lot about kind of avoiding saddles in certain situations because they're very obvious terrain features that people will gravitate toward. And so a lot of times you're going to get pressure there and stuff like that. Yep. This is one of those little areas where it's not real obvious, even on topo.
There's nothing obvious about that up there.
And what we kind of come to learn after the first year that Tate and I were there, I killed a buck out of that tree, killed a nice deer, had an opportunity on a really good one like the day before I killed mine and screwed that up. And then Tate jumped in the same tree and killed a good buck the next day out of that same tree. So that's why we call it the killing tree. But what we learned is there's that saddle that kind of comes through there, and it's not a real obvious saddle.
Nope.
You don't really recognize it until like you hike it and you put some boots on the ground, because you're not going to see it a whole lot on the topo. It's more just how like the terrain and kind of vegetation all kind of come together. It's almost really what makes the saddle more so than the topography itself. But there's doe bedding on, we'll just say this ridge runs east and west.
Yep.
There's doe bedding that is at the east end of the ridge, and there's doe bedding that is on the west end of the ridge.
Yep.
And we're literally sitting in the middle at this saddle that bucks are kind of cruising and popping up over and constantly kind of going back and forth between doe bedding areas and checking. And
well, for the listeners out there, let's just paint a real black and white picture. When it's right out there, what you just described is exactly what occurs.
Yep, 100%.
100%. There's no more, no less to it.
Yep.
They do the wild thing.
Yep. And you will get significant rut activity in there, and that's what we've seen like every time is just like deer coming in, laying down sign, getting pissed off, raking trees, pushing does around. But the nice thing about that spot is that not often, at least me, and you've hunted it more than I have, because, I hunted it. I think I've hunted that area twice, like 2 different seasons. And it, typically when you see bucks out there, even if they're on does, like I've not very often had them running through. Like they've typically been just kind of following at a distance or kind of nudging does along. Yeah. Where I've been in other spots, like say in Missouri, where it's like, good God, if I could just get a deer that wasn't in a dead out sprint, you know what I mean? Like I saw bucks, but only a handful of them did I have enough time with them that I could have even gotten a shot opportunity just because of how quickly they were moving through, In that spot there, for whatever reason, I don't know that I've ever seen a deer classic like chase a doe through the area. I almost feel like it's a cutout spot.
I haven't either, and I agree with you on the cutout spot. I will tell you this, and I've told you this before. The year before you, Chad, and I went out, I think that was 2018. Mm-hmm. I went out by myself in 2017. or 2018, and we went out. In 19.
Yeah, whatever.
I forget.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. The hardest chase that I've ever seen out there, and he was trying to cut her out too, but this girl was close.
Mm-hmm.
Was the biggest buck I've ever seen out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Remember me telling you about that?
Yeah.
This guy was a stud.
Yeah.
And that's the hardest running I've ever seen out there.
And what date?
And it was from the biggest buck I've ever seen.
And what date was that?
Late.
It was late.
By late, I mean...
Like second week?
No.
No?
I don't think I got into the second week. I think let's go anywhere from 7 to 9.
7 to 9.
7th and 9th on that.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing about that spot out there is like usually, I've run some cameras out there and stuff like that, and usually you'll have at least one bona fide hammer that's going to spend some time in there. Now, whether you get to lay eyes on him or not, or whether he comes through in daylight or not, I remember the last time I was out hunting it, we had that one deer that was, I don't remember exactly how big he is. It's like, who knows? He was somewhere between 140 and 150 inches.
Yeah.
He was a big deer.
Yeah.
And I missed him by a day, like 2 different times, where it's like he came through right before I got there. And I think he came through like, one evening, like just after dark, after I got out of the tree or whatever, and just like,
Isn't that the beauty of it, though?
It is.
Even though it grinds your ass.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's like I had a whole season of near misses like that last year. It's like, in Pennsylvania at least, they're just kind of being a day late and a dollar short. Or, Sunday hunting or whatever, kind of putting the kibosh on me or whatever. Yeah. So, but you're planning to head out there this year, right? That's like that's the deal. It's
the plan.
Yeah.
It's the plan.
Now, you going later or earlier this year?
I'm going to do the 5 to 10 thing.
5 to 10?
Yeah.
Okay. That to me feels about right, because I feel like out there, at least what we've seen on camera and stuff like that, is that if you don't catch that like 30th, 31st, first, and maybe the second, like it does kind of die down, is what we've seen on camera. And, look, people out there listening, it's probably pretty classic for a lot of areas, right? So, but, the first year I was out there, it's like, man, the activity we were seeing, or that I was seeing in that area, was really the 4th, 5th, and 6th, like where it is when I had a lot of action and then ultimately ended up killing. Then you saw action or I think it was the 8th you killed.
Well, it was the day Trumpy became president.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yep, 100%.
That day is just locked in on me. Yep. I forget if it was the 7th, 8th, or 9th, but it's the day he became president.
Right. Yeah. I'd like to get back out there one of these days to that spot, because it's just a cool little spot to hunt.
It is, for me, going out by myself. Mm-hmm. But now I got guys that want to tag along.
Right.
And go. But I've heard that before.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm in.
Yeah.
Then a couple weeks in, what do you think? Nah, I'm sorry, Tate. I can't go.
Right.
Not slowing me down. I'm going.
Yeah.
But the reason why I go there, Clint, and you know why, if I'm fortunate enough to take an animal, hopefully it's all downhill on extracting, getting him out of there.
Yeah.
I got to look after myself a little bit here, too.
Yeah. No, 100%, man.
But I also remember the church. I also want to get back in there. Because that's a cool little spot.
Yeah, it is. And you hunted that a couple days, didn't you?
Well, it was the weather week that you and Chad and I went out.
That's right.
You remember how bad the weather was?
Yes.
We didn't have any good hunting for 4 or 5 days after we got there.
Yeah. It was
and the best day that we actually had was I grunted one in, and I had another one moving through out there at the church.
Yeah.
You remember? Well, you never saw the scrape.
No, because I didn't go back in there. Well, we went back in there to hang cameras that summer or whatever and go and make a walk through. Even I think we went out in the winter, if I'm not mistaken, like me, you, and Chad. That's when you put your truck in the ditch. I just got to mention that.
You have to. And as well, I'd be disappointed if you didn't. And there's still YouTube video out there. I'm pretty sure. Chad, he got that.
Yeah, there's that.
And there's still a right front mud flap in that ditch out there.
That was hilarious. So anyway, so you're planning to go out there, but like the real big news for you this year, man, is you're going to have a lot more hunting time on your hands, not in the 2021 season, but the 2022 season, because
Yeah.
my man's getting ready to hang it up.
He's hanging it up, bro.
He's retiring.
Yeah.
He's gonna hang up his work boots, trade him in for hunting boots.
We're going to have a burn the work apparel party. Every stitch.
Right.
But yeah, that's, I'm not going to lie to you, buddy. It's something I'm looking forward to.
Yeah.
In a big way.
Rightly so, man. You know?
A big way. I've earned it.
Yep.
I'm not patting myself on the back, but it's time for me to
Hang her up
switch
and enjoy the good life.
So when any hunting I do this fall, and I'm gonna try to get out there as much as I can, especially in November in Ohio. But come November, I know January 13th, it's gonna be like a pre-party hunting for me. January 13th, I'm done.
Yeah.
So
I'd throw this out there, man. Like, maybe you look at your hunting season this way this year, right? And maybe you go to Ohio, right? Or maybe you pick somewhere else that you've wanted to go and you go hunt it this year, but you almost treat it to a degree as like a preparation for the following season. Like you go out, you hunt it, you scout it, learn it a little bit. And then when you have a lot of time next year after you retire, you now kind of have the lay of the land of that spot, wherever it is, whether it's Kentucky, whether it's you tag along with Chad and I and go to Kansas or whatever, and something like that. Like that might be a cool option to do, is just kind of pick a place and go, you know what? Ohio's going to be there. I know that spot. I want to go here the next year and start making that plan.
Well,
what do you think of that?
From this driveway here, Ohio is 3.5 hours away.
Yeah, that's an easy hunt for you to get to.
That's I can do that.
Yeah.
That's
Kansas is not 3 hours away.
No, I don't think so. No.
So how do you think being retired is going to change how you hunt?
It's something that I haven't really thought about.
Okay.
I ain't gonna bullshit you on that. What I do know is that there will be time, and there won't be anything else in the back of my mind.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
There'll be more time. Probably this year coming, after I retire, there'll be more time scouting than actual hunting, probably.
Yeah.
Or recon hunts.
Right.
I mean, we've talked about that before. But at my age, not that I'm old out there, guys, but at my age, and we've talked about this before, the appreciation is more noteworthy than it ever has been.
Right. Yeah.
Time at field.
Yeah.
And I would like to really, this is where the scouting and the homework comes in, and since I've ran into you, we've gotten to know each other. The quality aspect is more instilled in me than it ever has been. Right. Quality animals.
Right.
And quality hunts, even though a lot of hunts are not quality.
They're not all going to be, man. You have plenty. You can do all the work you want to do, and you're still gonna have some stinkers.
Sure.
It is what it is.
Well, that's okay.
The game. That's the game you play.
That's okay with me.
Yeah.
Hall of Fame hitters get in the Hall of Fame in baseball by batting 300. They don't bat 1,000.
They fail 70% of the time.
They sure do.
That's right, man. So do you have any places and I know you haven't thought about it a whole lot, but I'll just put you on the spot here, right? As we're talking, are there any states that you're kind of like, and I know you haven't done a ton of thinking about this in advance or whatever, but just as we're sitting here thinking about man, I'm retiring. Are there any states that you have in your mind where you're like, man, I've always wanted to go here and bow hunt whitetails, or I've always wanted to go here and bow hunt whitetails? Is there anything like that you think because now you have the time to jump in and do it. And you know me, you give me a state, I'll go. You know what I mean? And it doesn't have to be expensive. That's the one thing people out there listening that I try to impress upon people is that look, you can do these things, especially if it's not a draw state and it's an over-the-counter state or whatever. You can do these out-of-state hunts pretty on the cheap, just depending on how many amenities you want to have.
Yeah.
So are there any places outside of Ohio that you're like, I'd really love to get to this state and this state?
Well, I've heard a lot about it, and I got two good friends that have been going to Missouri in November the last 5 or 6 years,
Mm-hmm.
and
We went last year.
you're videoing and the partying you did down there last year. That's a state.
Mm-hmm. And that's not an expensive hunt either. That tag's pretty inexpensive. I want to say it was like maybe $260 or something like that. I think it might be going up this year. I don't recall off the top of my head, but still, that's not it's a long drive, but it's not a terrible drive necessarily.
Well, this is where my wife and I disagree on things, but if you want to go hunt somewhere, you need to purchase a license, right?
Right.
Well, that's like putting gas in your truck.
Yeah.
To go to where you want to go, whether it's work or to the golf course.
Yep.
Or on a hunt trip.
Yep.
That's expense that I don't factor in.
Yeah, to me, that's a given cost. That's a sunk cost. It's like I gotta have a license to go do it.
Gotta have it. I don't.
You would love Missouri.
By what Andy and Matt have talked about, and especially what I got out of you last year, it sounds like you just had a blast.
Oh yeah, and I got a couple. Chad and I have a spot right now that we really love that I think is just primo. It's funny because he and I were just talking about our Kansas trip, and because we're actually getting a small freezer to put in the trailer.
All right, fill it up.
Yeah,
fill it up.
We're getting a small little 3.5 cubic foot freezer anticipating that we're gonna kill deer in Kansas. And we're fingers crossing is that we were hoping, Chad and I are always positive on these trips, right? Like we don't go out thinking it's going to take 2 weeks for us to kill deer.
You got to think like that.
And so what we're thinking is like, look, let's just say we kill deer the first week, both of us, in the first 5 to 7 days.
Sure.
Right. We're already halfway across the country. Let's stop in Missouri on the way home, buy an over-the-counter tag because we both had encounters with shooter deer within the first 24 hours of being there.
Well, you had your fun, but did you think I remember that Chad ran into a 160?
A 160, and he missed the 130. Yeah, he saw the 130 twice. Like he had 2 different encounters with them, and he shot under him.
What's every bow hunter want? An opportunity.
Opportunities, yeah. And this particular place that we were at is ripe with opportunity, and so that's why when we started talking about it, he was like, well, then we need to get a freezer to stick in there, so we can debone Kansas deer, throw them in the freezer, head to Missouri, and then hunt the rest of the however much time we have left.
Exactly, man.
And even if it's only 3 days, I feel pretty confident. We know that area a little bit better now, and we got on deer in first 30 minutes we were there, not knowing anything about it. We know a little bit more about the lay of the land and stuff like that. So we were like, you know what? We would probably stand a pretty good chance if we had just a couple days of getting pulled back on something. And so that's kind of our game plan now. So Missouri's one of yours that you might want to go to.
Well, hold on a second here. Shout out to Chad. I love that guy.
Yeah.
Anybody that takes one step to my 3 is my hat's off to him, especially when you're chasing that guy through the woods, man.
Yeah, that's a hard task.
Yeah.
But so what's another one? Do you have another one in mind that you might want to venture to?
Well, I just thought about this because now I'm probably going way off of where you're thinking, but the kid's been in Rochester, New York, but he's going to be leaving in July.
Yeah, he's moving down near me.
Yeah, I know, and that's a good thing.
Yeah,
for several reasons. But the several times we went up there visiting him, once I broke across the New York line, there was, I don't want to be morbid, but there was roadkill everywhere.
Right.
And I just let this fly through my mind. I got on the internet and Googled up. There's a lot of public land up there, but that's a what if.
Right.
He's going to be out of there, so there's really no reason for me to slide. There won't be no fall hunting up there this year for me if I elected to do that and pull in a hunt and go hang with him for a while.
Right.
So that's out of the question.
So are there any other Midwestern states? Could I ever get you to say buy a Kansas tag and go to Kansas and chase some giants? Could I twist your arm and get you to do that?
I don't think you have to twist.
No.
Because you don't have to twist.
Right.
I've seen that in magazines and on TV. Not that I'm wrapped up in any of the TV productions. I'm not.
Right.
But I know there's a guy out here just 6 miles down the road. He slides out a good bit to Kansas for the muzzleloader season.
Yeah.
And Allen has knocked down several good deer. But I know giants come out of Kansas.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And
it's not a hard state to draw necessarily. I mean, typically if you have a point, you're almost guaranteed to get a tag.
Really? So you got a point up there. Okay.
I got one. I had one this year and got my tag, and
awesome.
And usually, even if you don't, it depends on what zone you're trying to get. But even if you don't have a point, like I've known people who didn't have any points and got a tag. It's not terribly hard to get.
Sweet.
So it's not like Iowa.
It's not like the Mecca.
Yeah, it's not like Iowa. But the caliber of deer that are there, I mean, are Iowa-like.
I think they're parallel.
Yeah.
Not that I have any experience.
No, just in talking to John last year, because he was out there and he killed a good buck, and he just said even just from body size, he was like they're bigger, like the deer are just bigger there, like body wise, which I thought was crazy. Like I would have thought like the deer I saw in Iowa while I was there was just like huge, like they were insane, not just rack but just body.
Well, that was one of the very first impressions and one of the very first things you told me about Iowa, let alone some of the couple booners that you've seen.
Yeah, that
you were blown away by their
the
flat out body size.
Yeah, I mean it was just like ridiculous how big they were. But well, man, we've been here for a little over an hour. I'm gonna have to get on the road here soon. But there's one thing I wanted to bring up before we call her quits here, and I'm just trying to flip some stuff once. If you hear some rattling around, that's what you hear. Today was Memorial Day. We were talking about Veterans Day. I love you like family. Always have. I have a deep appreciation for you mentoring me and getting me into bow hunting. And I'm so
I didn't mentor you.
Well, man, you got me. You introduced me to it, and
I put a little something in your water, and you just let it grow, dude. I didn't.
And I'm so happy that you're getting ready to retire and are going to be able to enjoy the woods even more than you do now. And I've always told you my goal is to keep you in the woods as long as I possibly can. Right?
Oh yeah.
So, me and my buddies from Tethered got together and decided that we wanted to give you a retirement gift and get you set up for the woods and be ready to rock and roll in retirement. So, if you don't mind, let's open it up this bag if you don't mind.
Yeah, man. What are you doing here?
Open up that bag if you don't mind.
Where at, Clint?
There's a zipper over on the other side.
This is like Christmas, dude. What are you doing?
My buddies from Tethered, when I talked to them, I told them how much you meant to me as a friend, as a bow hunting buddy.
I'm taken back, pal.
Here, open it up. That's why I brought this knife in. It wasn't to show you.
I don't want to cut in anything.
It's everything. Everything in there is boxed. Like you're good,
dude. This is. I really don't know what to say. I'm taken back by this. This came out of nowhere, and
I called Tethered and I said, "Hey, I got a buddy that means a lot to me. He's a veteran. He's retiring. I want to send him off the right way." And their response was hell yeah, and that was it. So thanks to Tethered. Shout out to those guys for making this happen.
Thank them. Thank you. I love you like a brother too. And
for sure.
I think I realized that the first 5 minutes that we talked.
Yeah, we've shared some great moments together, man. For
no,
sure,
we have.
And this will just make sure that we're.
And you've been after me for, and I'm glad you are. I'm glad you are, because I need somebody kicking me in the ass. But you've been after me about the saddle, and by watching you do what you do in the saddle, this is going to benefit me greatly.
It's my goal, man, is to keep you in the timber as long as I can.
Dude, you guys have wrapped me up in a great way here. Look what I get to do this summer. I get to practice.
Yeah, get you on a tree, pull some of that stuff out there. So what we have here is
I don't know, but I'm gonna know.
It's I believe that's the Menace saddle. So you got your saddle set up there.
Gotcha.
Right? You got your ropes, your carabiners. You're all set up there with your safety gear. Get your ropes all set up.
Dude, I'm.
And then
wow, I don't know what to say. I'll hug you here after.
Oh yeah,
that'll be off camera.
Yeah, that'll be off camera. So another rope to get you all set up. Your tether. That'll be your tether
that's
there.
That's the 5-inch eye tether.
Yeah, I'll get you. I hope you get all set up.
You're gonna be. We're gonna be. I'll be OJTing with you, bro.
Yeah, and then that's in there yet is that's just like there's a sticker and stuff in there, and then this is the platform.
Okay.
To use. So
I
you're
can
also
tell by the weight there.
So go ahead and open that up. Take a look at that thing.
I'm like a kid.
I think you have to open it from the back side there, if I'm not mistaken. There might be a piece of tape
Hold on
it.
a minute. No, there's no tape. I don't want to bust. Hold on a minute. I'm figuring it out. There we go.
There you go.
Look at that little fella right there.
Yep. So you're all set up with a platform. I'll get you some stuff to get you some deadening material on that, so you can silence it a little bit, some tape or whatever the case is. We'll get you.
Dude, I'm ecstatic. I'm just I'm ecstatic. I appreciate Tethered for especially during this time of year and Memorial Day.
They're veteran owned. Greg's a veteran, and they're always down to help support veterans. And whenever they knew that you were,
God bless them. And I'm sure. Well, I know there's a lot more fellows that are more deserving of this than me, but I thank them greatly. It's not lost on me at all. I could almost. Well, I'm not going to cry, but this is special.
It is, man. You're a special fellow, man. I love you like a brother.
Thank you, man. Right back at you.
So I think with that,
I'm taken back. Once again, thanks to Tethered, and thank you, Clint, for being who you are.
It's my pleasure, buddy. So with that, we're going to wrap this thing up.
My goodness.
Tate and I are going to share a hug. We'll talk to you all next time.
Goodbye.
All right, folks, that is a wrap for today's show. I'd like to thank all of you for listening. And if you haven't yet, please head over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star rating. And hell, while you're at it, head over to YouTube and give us a sub there too. I'd be super appreciative if you'd be able to do those two things for me. And before I shut this thing down, I need to give a big shout out to our partners who continue to help us make this podcast possible. Tethered, Exodus Outdoor Gear, Skull Brew Coffee Company, and Maven Optics. And until next time, we'll see y'all.